Hello, everybody. Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining today at the round table. It's a round table discussion with Michelle, Michael, Department of Trade Consumer Protection. They're going against each other in a matchup like no other. No, they're not. They are actually going to break down what I think is a very interesting scam here, and you guys call it a snowball. Scams can snowball. And interesting enough here, this one incorporates everything. So who wants to set this one up?
I can set it up.
All right, Michael.
So scam started, like many do that we've talked about over the years here, with a pop-up on the computer saying that your information has been compromised and you need to call a certain number. So the consumer called this particular phone number and thought they were talking to someone from Windows customer support. And they said, we need to refer you to the Federal Trade Commission and we'll set you up with a conversation they can help you out. Well, they weren't really calling the Federal Trade Commission, but they thought they were. And so they start talking to a particular special agent who can help them out with the situation. Where red flags should have started kind of going up there, but it's understandable how they can be very convincing, and that's why we continue to talk about these scams. Well, this particular imposter agent had this consumer sign a non-disclosure agreement, which is another tactic so that they're not telling anyone, and they can keep them focused on what they're doing. And through the course of this, they said, your information's been compromised even more, and so we need you in order to consolidate and make sure that everything is safe, put all your money into one new account. So the consumer moved all of their money into an account, and once it was there, they were convinced by this imposter agent to take all of those funds and buy gold bars. And in buying said gold bars, this was in an effort to make sure that their money was safe, in an effort to make sure that it was at a location. And then they were asked to give it to a government agent. And so, like you see in the movies, the black SUV pulls up and they put the gold bars in the SUV and off they go, and unfortunately never to be seen or heard from again, and the money's gone. So this is a really one that we wanted to highlight because it does talk about a lot of different scams and different components of those that we try and highlight.
I don't even know how to follow up with. I mean, complexity of scams is always interesting. I mean, we hear of some of the craziest things, but where do you how do you even stop yourself from getting so deep in this one? Certainly there were some red flags here, but
right.
Wow.
It is a wow, and nearly $500,000 being lost to this scam, and as Michael said, highlighting it because it combines so many of the different scams together and keeps going, and it shows how that scammer is just going to hang on until you do that disconnection. And so it's so important to have these conversations, and having that individual sign the non-disclosure agreement and tell them that it was for their own safety and security to keep this information confidential and private. Well, now they're not going to feel comfortable talking to their friends and family because they've just signed an agreement, and that's one of the tactics. If you can't talk about it and have conversations about your own personal business with your friends and family, that has to be a red flag. That we really want people to recognize, no matter what situation that they are in, they have the freedom and the ability to have discussions and choose to have these conversations with people that they trust and know as they're in the middle of different situations. And no matter how deep they're in, be okay to talk. We've talked for years about give yourself permission to hang up the phone. Well, give yourself permission to have a conversation with people you trust about your situation so they can help you recognize things as they are progressing.
I don't know that we've ever spent a lot of time talking about not being afraid to reach out to somebody in situations like this. Don't be afraid, because you're like, oh my gosh, I think whatever you're thinking, if you're thinking, and you're you're embarrassed, or you're not sure, you just signed a weird document, and you're like, oh my gosh, where do I go? It's pretty important to actually don't be afraid. You guys are here to help.
Right. You have to be sure that if you're the one someone's reaching out to, there's no victim shaming.
Yes.
Do not shame them into feeling bad about the decisions that they made. Help them get out of the situation and then assess what steps might need to be taken or what assistance might need to be given, but we need to remove the shame part because these are talented individuals that are choosing to use their skill set to take advantage of others as opposed to maybe advancing good causes.
Yeah, and there's no reason you should lose your identity over something as crazy as this. And picking on the red flag side of this, and the feelers should go up. It doesn't always work that way, right? Because they catch you off guard. It's something that's out of the blue. You're not ready for it, and it just blows your mind how complex this gets so quick.
It is, and if you compound them, it seems even more convincing. This one started with a very simple pop-up, which we've been talking about for a very long time. And even with that pop-up, we talk about, well, don't respond to that because that pop-up itself could contain malicious software, or that phone number is not going to take you to the support, which this one did not. And then you keep adding more and more scams to that to make this pool of different angles that they're coming at you. And we talk about the shame and saying that's one of the reasons that they don't want to talk about it. So being very cognizant of that. But at the other side, they also want to believe that it's real. Like you want to believe that whether you're investing in something or maybe it's a romance or anything else. So that's another obstacle to try and get past and say, this is why we can get you to help. But as Michelle was mentioning, if you don't tell someone, it's impossible to get the help that you need, whether it's us or whether it's someone else.
Exactly.
But it all starts with that conversation.
And finally, and we all work for government, we've got to find a way to say that the government just doesn't reach out. They just don't come to you out of the blue within reason.
Right.
But you got to be able to recognize that, and that's something that we got to keep talking about, right? We got to keep that conversation going.
Well, that's what was a little bit tricky and sneaky about this scam too, is the pop-up, but then they want you to talk to what we call a trusted resource, the FTC unit. Talk to the FTC unit. Here's how to reach them. Click this. We're directing you. So the step that was skipped is not using your own contact number, resource, and reliable, but we say that that's a trusted resource. It's not as though the FTC called this person. It was reach out here, let me transfer you, and they're going to be reliable. So it was pretty sneaky. In trying to do that, and then the follow-up, and now they think they have the right person to help them with identity theft. I mean, they're one of the places we tell people to go to help get guidance. FTC.gov. FTC.gov. Don't click the link in the email. Type it in yourself.
Finally, Michael, just stopping. We've talked about it again and again, but just taking a pause, taking a moment to really stop, think about what is happening here. It's a game changer, though. I mean, we joke about it a little bit every once in a while, but really talking about stopping and thinking about, is this really legit? Is it really? Where would you suggest somebody go if they're questioning these types of things in any scam? Just to pause for that moment and be like, you know what? I need to verify this. Where would you start?
The pause is perfect, and one of the phrases we always use is respond, don't react. Take that 10 to 15 second pause and just think about what's happening, because in that amount of time, you're going to allow that emotional reaction to subside a little bit. A little bit of logic might call back in and say, okay, wait a second, let me look at this without that, because that emotional response is how these are successful. Getting you to react quickly, creating that sense of urgency or whatever that is that makes you say, I need to do this right now. So what we do, what we talked about earlier, just disengage, completely disengage. If you think it's going to be there, it'll be there. And if it's not, then it's good that it wasn't. But making sure that you are taking that pause, and that's where you can go anytime to do so.
Wowza. Well, this gets interesting every year, I suppose, with new tactics and stuff. But this one definitely takes the cake, I guess, for as it stands. If people want to stay up involved in finding out more about scams or learning more about identity theft or just trying to wrap their head around these types of situations, where would you suggest they go to?
You can go to our website at datcp.wi.gov or, of course, call the Consumer Protection Hotline at 1-800-422-7128.
Wow. Well, you really you set the bar high here for 2024. My goodness. But hopefully we can stop somebody from being significantly scammed. And we look forward to having you back. Thank you both for joining me. And we look forward to more of this. More of this.
More of this.
Thanks, Jeremy.